someone will take you in, and next thing you know, you're on a stage talking to the director. So,
and for Picard, did I hear right that you were actually on another? You left another. You were on another gig, and
oh yeah. I had been trying to get on Picard, and then COVID hit, and they had already crewed up, so it wasn't. There's no hard feelings or anything, but they had already crewed up, and then somebody quit. And I had a friend that was working on the show. He kept putting my resume on their desk, but there were other people in line. So they hired like 3 different people. And then, there was turnover, or, people leave for other jobs all the time. It's pretty frequent, actually. You just replace yourself. And I was on this show. It went like season 1 only, called Rebel for ABC.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like in the last 2 episodes. And so I just like gave my notice. They were mad, but I mean, it was the end of the show. So I replaced myself. Everybody was fine. Nobody died. And then I got in. I'm like, it's Star Trek, guys.
Mm-hmm. It's a whale, yeah.
And they decorated my whole office like space and Spock everywhere, and they were so excited for me. So, I did leave that show to start.
And I think what a lot of just the general public doesn't realize with the industry is that you're working on a show. It's a limited run for however long it is, and then you're unemployed for a while. This like job insecurity that's like just rampant.
All the
time.
It's worse when you're new because you don't know anybody. So like I moved to LA and I'm trying to work, and I only knew a handful of designers. And so if they had work for me, great, we're working, but that show that, you have terms. So if it's a commercial, 15 days, if it's a TV show, a couple of months. If you're on a show that's a long running show, like How to Get Away with Murder ran a couple of I was on them for a couple of seasons. So that you get a call back every year when they start that show back up. But yeah, you know what your end date is. So that's your last day of work. So it's traumatizing at first when you don't have any money, like, oh, what's my next job going to be? But now I'm like rolling in from job to job to job. So now I'm like, oh, I'm not available. I need some time off.
So what advice would you have for people to like get through those times until you get to a spot where you have the connections and have the experience, go from job to job?
Which therapist do you recommend to get you through that?
Yeah, that's definitely important. But I think people tell you when you move to LA, especially, and I mean, I know there's film industries in every city. Like I've actually never worked in Boston, but I'm from Worcester.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, no way. What years did you live there?
The first 18 years of my life.
Yeah.
So.
I was there from 82 to 84. It was a very, very intense experience.
Yeah.
What a town.
I never worked there though. So I'm looking for an opportunity to work out there. But when you move to LA, especially, the locals will say, give it 2 years. And at the end of the 2-year mark, you'll either know you love it out here and you can deal with all the crazy that comes with the traffic and the expensiveness and all of that, or you meet people, you're working, like, you really like it. So at the 2-year mark, that's kind of when stuff starts getting a little better. And if it doesn't, people move back. They move back to their hometowns. They decide to pick up and live somewhere else that suits them better. So I was one of those, like, I think I moved to LA with 150 kids from school, and there's like 5 of us left.
Yeah.
So on that.
And it's not like the people that leave, it's not like that they couldn't cut it. I'm sure you saw a lot of amazing, talented people leave. And this is what I kind of want to get to, because I have a lot of friends in the industry. I've had to help friends in psychological crisis situations, get hospitalized and stuff like that. To me, the demands of the industry, the long days, the deliverables that you needed that, they want you to have delivered yesterday, it's just not manageable, I think, for a lot of people. And then you hear about a lot of reliance on drugs and stuff like that. And now in the last, few years, with the strike and COVID, you're hearing a psychological epidemic happening, not just in the entertainment industry, but in every industry. And I mean, how hard is it to watch talented people crumble and not make it?
I think it's harder for people. Like, most people out here are talented and they want to work. And I think the people that have the hardest time are the people that aren't getting opportunities for whatever reason. Like they just haven't met the right people. They haven't, like, I had like what they call a big break, where I worked on something that exploded into a lot of other things. But really it's people that are like, I didn't get any calls this week, and it's hard it's really when you can't pay your bills, that's when you can start to see people's mental health decline. So I think that was probably the biggest issue that we had. The long hours and all of that, there have been people that have thrown in the towel and they just want to like I had a friend, he picked up and moved, and he still works in film, but in like Connecticut somewhere, like renting equipment out, and he likes the pace better and it's better for his mental health. But there's some of us out there that are sticking to it. So,
I mean, 16 to 18 hour days have become standard and have been standard for decades. But how that's become standard, I'll never understand that.
No, it's outrageous. Yeah, and I'm an art director, right? So I don't work a lot with the crew. So there's on company and then kind of off production. So I'm there in the morning with them to make sure everything's going well, but I'm actually not needed for filming. They have on-set dressers, they have all of these other people, but I have like 6 or 7 other sets that need to be ready for the next day or the next day. So I actually have like my work cut out for me, but I can kind of set my own hours. If I wanted to leave early and like do an 8 or a 10-hour day, I absolutely could. I just would fall so far behind because there's so much work to do. So I set my own 18-hour days, which is also not good.
You just said, if I want to leave early, after an 8 or 10-hour day, like that's not leaving early.
I know. It's like, I think there was some fact that like people that work 8-hour days, like 5 days a week, film industry people. So every 3 years we work an extra year. That's how like the ratio works, because like we're 60. I mean, I was averaging on Picard, I was averaging like 85-hour weeks, which was like, plus the commute and all that. Like, I mean, I was pretty busy, but like I've had worse weeks, and I've had weeks where we've had to come in on the weekend because something with the Monday set went wrong. So we've got to do a different set. So we've got to work through the weekend to get it done. So then you add 12-hour days on Saturday and Sunday, you add that to it. I mean, the hours add up really fast.
I saw
a documentary. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just to add to the pressure of it, just going back for a second, it's the people who need a break, who can't really deal with, understandably, that many hours and the job insecurity. But like now, it seems there's the writer strike going on, and that's not just affecting, the actors. The actors, right? It's affecting everyone who's in the industry.
Right? Yeah. So they talked about like there was something that the actors and the producers didn't agree on, which was, I guess the producers wanted to be able to scan the likeness of an actor
for $300 for background. Yeah.
For 1 day of pay, and then they would own that likeness for AI or whatever in perpetuity. But what they don't realize is that there's a costumer that has to costume the actor. That person also gets 1 day. The makeup artist also gets 1 day, and I might not even be needed. I mean, if there's no set, if they're just scanning the person, I don't get any days. So all of these people also lose out on the work. So now the actors are striking, and they say they get, if they got paid, really they should be paid for every time their likeness was used. But the residuals don't go to the IATSE people. I mean, my union, we're a totally different union. We're not in strike. Like, we have a contract, and we almost last year or the year before, we were so close to IATSE striking. It was the vote was 51 to 49.
Wow.
So we were so close. But what I noticed with IATSE is a lot of the below the line people don't have, huge paychecks. Like, we have an hourly rate, and a lot of people still live paycheck to paycheck. So the vote was really close because these people do not want to strike, because now everybody, like even now, like there's a strike, we're not working anyways. But it's been really, really bad for a lot of my friends who, they had jobs that were supposed to start up in January. The productions they're on hold because there might be a strike. The strike didn't happen until April, or like May 1st or whatever. And we've been all these months we've been on strike. So a lot of my friends have not worked the whole year.
Right. I mean, Dave was saying to us, so in January, people were like, we're not going to go build this set, this Starship, have it sit around if there's going to be a strike in 3 months. We're going to delay. Yeah. So there's people that, I can afford to not work for a couple of months at a time, which is what it's the nature of my job. Like, to take a couple of months off is actually like good for your mental health. But nobody wants to not work for a year, like without, like, there's nothing, it's not like, oh, let me go get a job, on another show. It's like they're all shut down at the same time. So, that's been really, really stressful. Well, during this time now, you got to, I think if I saw on Twitter, you went to the convention in Las Vegas, right?
Oh, yeah. I've been like touring around.
Was that your first time going to one?
Yeah. So I went to Ticonderoga, the original series tour. I went to Comic-Con, and I went to Star Trek Las Vegas. So I've been busy. in my own way.
You went to San Diego Comic-Con?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been maybe 6 times, and as for somebody who has no social battery, I thought I was drowning. Like,
it's stressful. It's very stressful down there.
150,000 people on Saturday, and I was like, this is way too much.
Well, and
for me.
I stayed the whole weekend because I was talking. I had a panel on Sunday, so I got there Thursday. I wanted to see if some of my friends had panels, so I stayed the whole weekend, and I definitely could make it like 2 or 3 days of that many people, and then I'm like, nobody talked to me, like bumping into you. Like you really need to decompress after.
But a friendly crowd. No, I mean, I showed a film at the Boston version of it once years ago, and everybody was so supportive, just random people, and just
that's true. It's just there's just too much people. And then before masks, there was something very famous, called the Comic-Con cold, and everybody got it. Everybody.
Yeah, Vegas, a lot of people got COVID, actually, because I think COVID is spiking again.
Oh, yeah.
Even my group of people I was really close contact with, like a couple of people tested positive, and I've been testing for like 4 days. And
my studio too, we're expecting it now because people are starting to.
Yeah, there's like a little spike. Yeah. But we got away from Comic-Con with no COVID, but then Vegas, it kind of coincided right with this COVID spike. So maybe not the best.
What happens in Vegas comes back home with you now.
Yeah, right. It doesn't necessarily stay in Vegas.
Speaking of your health and your mind space, what's the story? Dave said we should ask you about the time he stole the Enterprise from you.
Oh, that's funny.
He won't give us details. Yeah.
Yeah. He specifically said if you want a mental health story and she can discuss her PTSD, ask her this.
No, it wasn't as bad. I complain about it because he did give me a bit of a jump scare. But the only thing on the Enterprise D so we recreated the set from 1987. Brick by brick, photo by photo.
Months, right? Months.
Yeah, months of recreating it. We shot it for 2 days, but the only original thing that we had on there was Mike Okuda's original plaque, and so it was in his garage, or he had it stored somewhere. He's like, I can't find the frame. And I said, no, it's okay, Mike, I'll send somebody to your house. We'll get it. We'll frame it. So it's my friend Mike Okuda's like original priceless plaque, and there was some, stories of in the 80s, the captain's chair getting stolen off the set. So I'm like, I just don't want this thing to accidentally get stolen. And it's like priceless. So every night I would go down to the set and I'd take it and I'd lock it in my office. But there was one night I was working late and I guess the company had left early. So like, I don't know, maybe 8:00. I went down there to get the plaque and it was gone. It was like a gaping hole where the plaque was. And I'm like, did this really get stolen? And I thought about it and I'm like, oh, the crew's been gone for hours. I said, I bet Dave took it. And so I went up to his office and he's still there. And he just was playing like, hey, yes, did you need something? And I was like, where is it? So I knew right away it was his. And then he tried to play dumb, but it was sitting there on his table. So I snatched it back and that was it. But yeah, it's like for a hot second, I was like, the one day I forgot this. So.
Put a Bluetooth tracker or an AirTag on it next time.
Somebody told me that. Yeah. And I did, but.
What was it challenging or fun to work with? I mean, like, so Dave and Terry Matalas, fanboys working in like their love, was that something that got in the way sometimes, or was it help?
No, for me it helped because I in any job I want to do a lot of research in whatever we're shooting. So like I just got off a Western. I'm a specialist in 1880s right now, but for Star Trek, I mean, they call it a historical drama set in the future, but there's like 60 years of Star Trek themed stuff, and the history and transporter rooms and all this stuff makes sense in that world. So you really have to study it. So I'm a little obsessive, and I was studying it for ages. And it was COVID, and I was watching the Next Gen. Next thing I know, I watched all of Next Gen. I've watched all of Deep Space Nine. Like I was just like, I was in deep. And so they appreciate that. So that was actually that was my was that not everybody watches Star Trek. People have lives, they have families. Like nobody has time to watch, 800 episodes of anything, and I had like taken the time and really gotten in there. And so that it gave me an edge. And actually then they were assigning me the good sets because they knew that, I had the space knowledge to, do it right. But that, there's a worry that for people that don't watch Star Trek that they're going to, it's just sci-fi and,
Right.
you know,
Just
to
dial it
space.
in. Well, that's interesting. Like, I mean, obviously the recreation of the bridge was such a big project, but something like you worked on the transporter